Okay, hello everyone. Here tonight and in the future. We are here to talk about ADUs tonight. That's like honestly one of my favorite topics right now. But we got some good information for y'all, and we are doing that. Abundant Housing LA is doing that with Casita Coalition, our ADU bros and homies. Yes, we love them. And so they are here to give us the lowdown on stuff we need to know around what has changed with ADUs, right? How can ADUs even more meaningfully and with flexibility add units to our housing stock, right? How can we do that? So I'm gonna do just a tiny bit of a little like formal introduction. So before we begin, we just want to acknowledge that Los Angeles sits on the traditional unceded lands of the Tongva, Chumash, Tataviam, and Quiche people across what is now the Los Angeles County. And then they had lived here since time immemorial. So the land was taken through colonization, and that history of stolen land and displacement is still with us today. As we talk about housing justice and housing advocacy, we can't ignore the root that this land was never freely given. So recognizing that helps us understand our work in a deeper way. Fighting for affordable, stable, and abundant housing is one way to begin to undo some of that harm. So everyone deserves a home. And true housing justice means making sure that our policies, our advocacy, and our vision for the future include that responsibility. If you don't know anything about Abundant Housing LA, ooh, I got something to tell you. Abundant Housing LA is a pro-housing nonprofit that works to make LA more affordable, inclusive, and sustainable. We advocate for policies that legalize more homes, make homes easier to build, fund affordable housing, and end homelessness, and we strengthen renters' rights. All with the foundation of racial justice and equity. We just want people to be able to live comfortably where they like. That's what we're going for. I am Joshua Gonzalez. I'm the Director of Education and Events at Abundant Housing LA. I am on staff, and I am happy to turn it on over to Jonathan and Celeste. Please tell us a little bit about Casita Coalition and introduce yourselves.
Hi there, and thanks for having us. I'm Celeste Goyer, and I'm VP of Research and Operations at Casita Coalition. And we're a nonprofit that's statewide in California, and we're working to remove the barriers to the homes that we need that are attainable, both for rental and for purchase. We do that through education, through policy reform, and through coalition building. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Jonathan.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Celeste. Just a quick introduction. Jonathan Pacheco Bell, Urban Planner and VP of Policy and Programs at Casita Coalition. We focus on ADUs and middle housing. That is our lane. We do a lot of work in the legislative space, education, advocacy. We are a coalition. We bring people together. Abundant housing is part of our larger coalition. So we are always looking to meet new potential members and coalition partners and just bring everyone into the fold so we can advance infill housing and middle housing. We started with ADUs and we're growing from there. We also are based in California. Celeste and I are in LA County, but we now are expanding to have a national reach. Celeste, I'll take it back to you.
Yes, and that's because a lot of the barriers to the housing we need to build, the barriers aren't federal or national. So we've got to look at those as well. So I'm just going to share my screen here and we'll get started. Okay, so we were invited here to talk. Yeah, we good? Can you see it? Okay. We were invited here to talk about something called AB 1033, a bill that passed that Casita Coalition worked on with Assemblymember Phil Ting. And it allows, somewhere here I've got an advance button, and it allows primary homes and ADUs to be sold separately as condos. And why do we need this? Because ADU law in California had a provision saying ADUs couldn't be sold separately. Other states haven't had that. Oregon doesn't have it. Texas didn't have it, but we did. So AB 1033 is going to help us create starter homes, something that we simply don't have almost any being built in California for a number of reasons. So here are some quotes about why they're important. One of them is our board member, one of the pioneers of the ADU movement, Cole Peterson, believes they're the least expensive form of urban infill housing that we can do. And where they are popular and common in Portland and other places, they sell for around half of a standard standalone home. So why ADU condos? Well, as I said, we need starter homes. People cannot afford to purchase homes. It leaves too many renters staying renters when they might want to own a home, and it leaves people stuck in a number of ways that doesn't help our families or our economy. So the state passed this law so that it is not a mandate. Cities and counties do not have to allow it. It is optional, so they have to opt in. But again, it's not new. It's only new to California. They've been doing this for years, with thousands of units produced in Portland, Austin, Seattle, and other places around the country. But good news is we now have 9 or up to 9 cities that have now opted in. Those listed here have adopted the ordinances and established the procedures so that homeowners can sell ADUs separately as condos using the process steps in state law. And I just got a couple slides here showing why this is such a serious problem. Because in California, homes are about twice as expensive as elsewhere, and they're all already too expensive elsewhere. Yeah, 85% of us can't afford the median priced home. And what they call a starter home is the bottom third of the market. Well, in 113 cities growing every year, that starter home, quote unquote, is over $1 million. So it's not sustainable like this at all. So what does AB 1033 do? As I said, it allows the separate sale of a primary home in an ADU. What it really does is add private homeowners to the list of people who can do this, because previous to this, nonprofits such as Habitat for Humanity and some other nonprofits were allowed to do it, but now regular folks can do it too. And it uses existing law, like Davis Sterling condominium law, like ADU law. It just adds ADUs to the list of things that you can convert to a condo and sell separately. You can already do that with apartments, even retail, there are even agricultural condos. So this slide just shows some of those different strategies that families might use to make this, to add to the flexibility of how they use their property. I'm not going to go through every one, but you can look at them. If you can separate your debt from ownership, if you can allow family members to start building equity by purchasing an ADU that's been converted to a condo, if you can give an elder homeowner who lives elsewhere but wants to live nearby the ability to help you produce an ADU in your backyard and own it, and they can own it as a condo, it just creates all kinds of flexibility for families. And by the way, we are taking some questions during the presentation, so raise your hand using the raise your hand feature, and I'll rely on Josh and Jonathan to help me out. So this is a quote from a gal in Portland who did this on her property. She was able to pay off her mortgage on her primary home by building an ADU, selling it as a condo, and she moved into the condo herself, the ADU herself, which had better accessibility features and was as much space as she needed. So it can help with reducing displacement, helping aging in place, and helping people retire who otherwise may not have had a chance, whose equity was locked up in their home. But what are the steps that's needed? Because as we said, it's not something that you can do in any city around California yet. So the city has to, A, decide it's a good idea and that it's needed, and B, they have to vote and direct the staff to create the ordinance, to remove the ban on separate sale, and establish those steps that are required in state law. Update their processes, create checklists, create a website page. And if they do all that and they don't do an outreach campaign, it's likely nothing will happen because no one will know about it. So that outreach on behalf of cities is also key. And that's where partnerships with nonprofits and with local builders can be helpful to get the word out. You're going to need help. This is not something you can do alone. Professionals that may be required include people like a surveyor to help you produce the parcel map, a condo attorney. There are a lot of condo attorneys. They're just getting up to speed on what the ADU condo specifics are. Sometimes you might need a budget consultant. That money might be able to get away with just the attorney and a title company. So the next slides have kind of an overview of what this is about. What is a condo? And to start with, I'm just going to say that there are different types of condos, and you might create a condo project in which the people just own the building. The buildings, the primary home, the ADU condo, and the underlying parcel remains as one parcel, and it remains as common property. That's called a site condo, but there are other condos in which you own the land exactly underneath. You have a title to the land underneath your units as well. There are variations of condo law, but they all contain these three elements, which is what you own, that you pay taxes on, that is yours. What is the common area? And if there are any parts of the common area, such as, say, a designated parking place, a storage room, etc., that are for the use of one owner. All this is written up in the condo documents. And the state law says, and Davis Sterling law says, that any condos created with ADUs in primary homes are going to have to follow all the rules in the Subdivision Map Act and in the Davis Sterling Condo Act. Those Subdivision Map Act rules do vary locally. And this is just a little bit about the type of parcel map you're going to be required to create, and that it must be recorded with a county recorder before you can sell anything. These are some of the elements you're going to be required to put together, including your condominium declaration, commonly known as the CC&Rs. You will have to have an association, even if it's just two people, two owners. Condominium plan is like a basic diagram, and then a budget for any shared expenses. Typically, they're very low. Typically, HOA dues in ADU condos are extremely low. And with good design from the beginning, you can make sure it's as simple as it can be with the lowest dues possible. This is a little bit about your condominium map. And it does have to be signed off by the lender if you have a mortgage on your property. Condominium plan describes those areas that we discussed earlier, what you own, what you share, and what you have exclusive use of on your shared property. I included all this detail so that it can be part of the resources you get afterwards. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go into the detail of every slide, but when we share the slides and the other resources later, you'll be able to refer back to it if you have questions. So all these things must be recorded with the county recorder, according to California law. There's some noticing requirements. The primary one, and the one that has the most potential for causing challenges, is the approval of your lender. If you own a home and your collateral on your home is your property and your home, and you come up with a plan to separate off part of that backyard and sell it as a separate condo unit, your bank has just lost some collateral on your property. Now, maybe you've got enough equity to where that will not make a difference, but in any case, state law says you've got to get approval. We recommend starting really early, like when you first have the idea to do this, to try to chase down your lender or a human warm body on the phone to try to start the process in motion for getting approval. Because it can take a while. Loans get sold a lot, as you probably know. You have to notify the utility providers. And if you're in an HOA, you have to get HOA approval. I'm going to pause there while we all contemplate the challenge that might present, because it is significant. Probably would be easier if you're not in an HOA.
I see a question from Abundant Housing.
Okay.
Okay, I'm really glad that you called that out, because are you saying that if the local if like the local entity opts in on this,
Yeah.
that someone who already lives within an HOA would have to create an HOA also on their parcel.
Yes, and they'd have to get approval for this HOA, the little baby HOA within the larger one, from the board. Now,
Oh.
about 34% of homes around the country are a part of an HOA.
Uh-huh.
In some cities, it's more than others. So it's going to be a challenge if you're a part of an HOA, but maybe not impossible because you're potentially bringing in more people who can contribute dues, etc.
Sure.
Kind of all depends.
Okay. And I guess what I'm trying to wrap my head around is that so someone living on that parcel would potentially be paying dues to two HOAs then.
Right, sure. Everybody living on the parcel would probably have to do
Would
that.
probably have to do that. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But the ADU, the small HOA with an ADU and a primary, at most probably 3 units,
Uh-huh.
they're going to be really, really low. I mean, in some cases we hear that they're under $100 because
Oh,
you don't have a lot of common space. There's not a lot of insurance. There really aren't that many requirements when the HOAs get this small.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. All
Okay.
right. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No,
Thank
no, please do.
you.
Okay, moving on.
And if anyone else has questions, definitely feel free, use the raise hand function or just jump on in. It's a conversation amongst
Yeah.
all of us.
That's right. So just a little bit here about financing, because there are two primary ways in which these things get done that we have seen from those states where they happen a lot. One is where you already have a primary home and an existing ADU. So you've got a homeowner in place, they have an ADU, and they say, hey, I want to separate this out. I tried to be a landlord. It was too big of a challenge for me. I'm older, just not up to it. Or I have a family member who wants to buy something and start establishing their own journey. So that's one. This is going to be like the minority of ADU condo projects. The majority are developers and builders who purchase homes with a backyard and they renovate the home and they add an ADU or two, because in California, remember, you can have up to 3. We're just changing the laws this year. We might get a change in that. But right now, let us say you have a primary home, a detached ADU, and an attached or conversion ADU. So that's going to be 3 units. The developer builds 2 of those ADUs, they renovate the primary, convert the whole thing to an ADU project, and they usually sell all of them individually at a lot less money than someone would spend to buy one home. But each of those scenarios presents a different challenge for financing. So we've just laid them out here. Again, depending on your interest in this, it has some notes. You will see there's an asterisk saying a HELOC may not be the best. If you haven't built the ADU yet, if you're a homeowner, you haven't built an ADU, think carefully, we have heard, before doing the home equity line of credit, because that's a second position loan. It can be a real challenge to get a release on that, to get that sign off that you need. So there might be a different type of ADU loan that's better for you. If you haven't built the ADU yet, and this is in your mind, you might do it later, talk with your lender first.
Celeste, I see a
yeah.
question coming in from Chris. I think this is germane to the topic. Are JADUs eligible for AB 1033? He heard they were not.
They are not, in fact. So when I said you could have 3, including the primary per lot, that doesn't include a JADU. However, you can still have a JADU on the property, but it has to remain part of one of the other units.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you had it in the primary home, it would go along with that. It would still be something you could rent, but it cannot be sold separately. Okay. So Casita Coalition, along with Rubin, Junius, and Rose, created a guidance memo that includes a model ordinance for those cities that don't want to develop their own from scratch. They just want to use the state allowance. And there are also some tips on there about other tailoring you might want to do to your ordinance for the needs of your community. And so you can find it on our guidebooks and resources page. Here's some of the ways that people are tailoring it in those cities that have opted in. We kind of recommend if you really want to improve the percentage that gets purchased by people who are going to live in the condos themselves, you can add a priority for owner-occupant buyers. For the first 45 days, when it goes up on MLS, the buyer has to attest that they intend to occupy it themselves. This is not a deed restriction. It's a voluntary attestation and a priority for owner-occupant buyers. Some other folks, I think in Austin, Texas, they did this. They added a preservation bonus. They were interested in preserving some of the older homes there. So they said, hey, if you do this on a property that has an older home and you fix it up and keep it, don't just doze it, we're going to give you an additional detached ADU. So we think that these are interesting ideas, and they are being tailored in various ways. I know Abundant Housing LA is, and we are too. We're very interested in making sure tenants' rights are respected. And some cities, I think it was Berkeley, built in San Francisco, maybe. Anyway, they built in something saying that only newer units or ones that were recently built can be converted to condos. They want those older units, ADUs, which are currently serving as affordable homes, rental homes for tenants, to remain. So there are all kinds of ways you can tailor it for your community. I will say, though, that most communities who are larger cities already have rules about condo conversions to preserve rentals. So this will fall under that. It likely would not have any exemption. All right, so you're saying, this sounds great. This sounds like something I want to do, but I live in Bakersfield and we haven't opted in. What do I do? How do I do that? I live in, you know, Los Angeles, for instance. We're not fully opted in either here. So what do you do? Okay. Your representatives need to hear from you that you want starter home and you want lower cost homes available in your city. So you can actually ask for a meeting with find out what district you're in, who's your city council person or your supervisor, ask for a meeting and you can talk to them. This is a piece of legislation that's already been voted on, so it's a little less restrictive. You don't trigger Brown Act things if it's something that's already been voted in. You're just talking to them about local implementation. So you can actually meet with them, have coffee with them, or meet them in their office and talk to them about why it's important. We've got talking points to help with that. Send them an email, send your representative. You can also send an email to the entire city council. We've got templates for that too. Go to meetings, make public comment. If it hasn't been agendized yet, show up at the public comment portion, which is for items not on the agenda. And we have some ideas for you on that too. They really need to hear from us that this is important, because obviously they've got a million things that are happening, you know, to say nothing of the Olympics, et cetera. So they need to hear. And another strategy, which is an interesting one, we know who voted for AB 1033. It's in the public record. You can look it up and see if your state senator or your representative in the House voted for it. If so, get in touch with them. You can call their office. You can write them an email and say, you voted for it because you think it's important. Can you reach out to the districts in your, to the cities in your district and encourage them to opt in locally? So that could work. If you're a city council person and you hear from a state senator that they want you to opt into this, I think you're going to pay attention. Seems likely. And then Casita Coalition resources are here. We're going to send a bundle to Abundant Housing that you can share out. And I'm happy to take a look at them with you after we do some questions. So Casita Coalition works on all these things. We're helping to implement a lot of the state laws. Just passing a law isn't enough. You've got to help roll it out. And we really appreciate Abundant Housing's partnership on this. We have other initiatives that we are helping to roll out as well. And we're a membership coalition. We have homeowners, planners, builders, developers, architects, lenders, appraisers, you name it, policymakers, elected officials, a whole lot of folks, other nonprofits that are part of our group. And we need to hear your voice and what is important to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Celeste and Jonathan. I just want to leave some space for folks. To if your gears are turning, like what kind of questions are coming up for you. And I see that William has just raised his hand. I want to say one more thing before we let you speak, William. I also would ask, I don't know that we're wholly prepared for this, but I would ask that people consider, why do you think you wouldn't do this? And I think that maybe that's something that we can talk about. So William, please go for it.
Yeah. So where I live in Long Beach, California, and we're building a ton of accessory dwelling units right now. Um, but I'm just curious why, like, if I was considering adding an ADU on my, like where I live, like why I would choose to convert it into a condo instead of just, I think currently, like people just rent them out to like college students or like other members of their family or friends or stuff like that. Why
Yeah,
is a condo conversion more desirable than just renting out the current property? And what's the difference between that and I know SB9 had like lot splitting. So just can you just further elaborate?
sure. Well, SB9 has the option to add homes on a property, whether with a lot split or without. But you couldn't, if you split a lot using SB9, the ADU and the primary home have to stay on the same piece. So it's also, Casita Coalition has worked hard for a number of years to try to make ADUs easier, faster, and less expensive to add. SB9 is in its early days, and the sort of the bumping portions of it haven't been ironed out yet. So it takes a while, and it's costly and not that easy. So people are choosing the condo process if there's nothing wrong with renting your ADU. We're completely and totally in favor of that. And for a lot of people, that's what they want to do, particularly for those who need the flexibility. They don't know if they're going to need to have a caregiver live there, if they're going to need to move in. They want to retain the family flexibility and rent it maybe to a family member or to an arm's length tenant. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. But let us say, I mean, there are many, many scenarios that it would be more helpful instead of renting to actually realize the equity in your home to develop an ADU and sell it off so that you're not tied up with a renter. And so that you might want to move into the ADU. Maybe you don't need the big house anymore. You're going to be able to sell the condo unit as a primary home for more money and pay off your mortgage and probably really transform your finances. There also, if you had a family member, let's say you had an adult child, renting to them long term is maybe not going to help them build equity and build up into their journey of buying a full-size home one day. But letting them purchase a condo from you that was an ADU that's smaller and more affordable can help them in a way that renting doesn't. So there really are all kinds of ways that this is helpful.
Yeah, and I'll add the element of home ownership. That's part of our mission. So, like Celeste was saying, if you have an adult child and you want to give them access to a starter home, the ADU as a condo could be it. They have their first home, they can start developing it. But also, if you want to give a home ownership opportunity to a community member so that they can stay in the neighborhood, they don't have to move far away or move out of state, and they have a home ownership opportunity, if that's part of your desire as a community member, and perhaps also while you're downsizing, maybe you can move into the ADU instead, and now the main house is available. All of that is part of the benefits of doing the AB 1033 process.
Okay. Yes, added flexibility is right. So if we don't have a ton of questions, I'm happy to also share some of the resources that we have. If we want to take a look at, for instance, our talking point. Aha, more questions popping up. Yay. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. Hi. Thank you so much for doing this at this time of night. I know I'm me personally running a little bit of errands in the house. But anyways, I have a series of three questions, which you may not know the answer to, which is fine. The first one I have is like, do we have any information on how many condo casitas have been created since 1033 has passed?
In California,
Yes.
we think it's something like 3,
So very, very few.
but it just was effective
Just
January
very, okay.
1st. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, with that small sample size, I was going to ask about like sales price versus construction, but not a big sample size there because one of the concerns I have is if it costs 400K to build, but you could reasonably sell it at 450, there's not a lot of incentive to do it, right? That's one of my concerns of mine. And then um the last question I have is, do you have any information on how much the legal services cost to do the condo plan, the CC&Rs and all that? Like what does that cost for a homeowner?
Well, we do have one example that a Casita member did the first one in San Jose, and they were nice enough to share the information with us. And apparently, it took them, this was on an existing home at ADU. Apparently, it took them about 5 months to do all the process, and it cost about $10,000.
Okay.
So that's reasonable given that you're likely to get that return on the sale.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. As far as the question, we don't know. And the cost of a building an ADU varies so much because you can obviously build something very basic. It can be even a manufactured ADU, and that too can be sold separately.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to vary what you invest in it and what you sell it for. But a large part of the value of a home, particularly in California, is the land cost. So we
Mm-hmm.
know that having a smaller home on a smaller piece of land that's already existing is going to help you bring down that sale cost.
Mm-hmm. Do you know when that Casita Coalition member sold their house, when they were coming up with the price, did they use comps like you would in a traditional home sale? Okay, in San Jose, it's $800 a square foot. This is a 700 square foot ADUs, yada yada yada, therefore price, or was it different?
Because it is such a new kind of form, we have heard from other states that some flexibility for the appraisers and comps is needed generally. I
Okay,
think we heard that they're using duplexes in some places and
that makes sense.
other smaller homes, I mean, townhomes maybe. So yeah, that's part of the new industry joy is the all these systems that have to be adapted.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Alex.
Hi, my name's Alex. I'm based in Long Beach, California. Think the city would be a really great candidate for this. I've already reached out to the director of community development. He said they're looking into it, but they have a couple questions. Um, I was wondering if it'd be possible to either get into contact with y'all, to see how like I can best answer them because I'm really unsure of the information. He was asking very specific stuff.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
sure.
I was just going to add, absolutely. One thing that we do at Casita Coalition is provide technical assistance to jurisdictions for
Okay.
all the legislative work that we do. So this would be definitely within our purview. We want to help jurisdictions understand the law and consider moving towards implementation. So have the director reach out to me and Celeste. We can drop our emails in the chat, and we can get that conversation going with City of Long Beach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I run the chapter here. I run the local abundant housing LA chapter, and we sent a letter. But I think it'd be really great to push this because I mean Long Beach is obviously having a big ADU boom. And both of our state legislators voted for this bill. So I think it'd be a really great candidate for it. I just think we need some technical assistance and support here, to be able to better answer the questions. So if we can get into contact, I think that would be really productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also helps when you have the larger cities taking it up. So some of the smaller cities and unincorporated areas around Long Beach can see that there's
Right.
momentum, right? So let's get in touch with the LBC planning director and go from there. If you don't mind, I'd like to queue up one of the questions because it ties into another city. Do we have any information on which cities are actively looking at, discussing, or approaching or adopting it? And then does LA have a plan to adopt? So on that note, LA, we are in touch with LA City Planning, and they let us know that AB 1033 is part of their comprehensive ADU update that they're working on right now. So City of LA is working on it, and we are in contact with them. We are aware that there should be some working groups coming out around the fall, so pretty soon, and it should include, as part of that ADU update, 1033. As far as other cities, we've heard, this is just sort of informal conversation, but we've heard about City of Pasadena, City of Glendale having some interest. People have already raised it up to the council, made public comments, have it on the radar of council members. So we do see it in that sense kind of floating to the surface. Anything to add to that, Celeste?
Oh, just that a city that has built that has a large number of ADU permits that have been issued is obviously a good candidate. And so we have a list of priority cities that we kind of are focused on trying to find connections in and encouraging opt-in. But nobody wants to be first. Luckily, we're over that now. We've got 9, so we're excited to be over the hump. But we're going to build momentum, as Jonathan said. San Francisco is a huge city. San Jose, we're talking like the biggest cities in California. So we get Los Angeles on, and some more proof of concept with some completed projects. And we are hopeful that we're going to. Great news in the chat there from Claremont.
Excellent news about Claremont.
Great.
We'll go to Lydia's question in the chat, and then we could follow up with Paras after. So Lydia asked, what are the potential downfalls, some of the challenges, right? We've covered a few. So I can start us off. One of the challenges that we have heard, one of the concerns is that this could remove tenant housing, rental housing. So, in response to that, I think one of the major items that is of note here is that there can be written into the opt-in zoning law that the existing tenant is considered first, right? You have the ability to opt in, number one, as 1033 is designed, but then it can be very specifically designed to address certain responsibilities and certain concerns. So like Celeste had mentioned, San Francisco has a certain year where only ADUs after a certain year are eligible, but prior to that, ADUs, which may be more so for rental and tenant housing, are not eligible. So that's one of the major concerns, the potential to remove rental housing.
Yes, and what we've seen in the other states where they've been doing this for a long time is that there's sort of a parallel track. The existing ADUs that are rentals mostly stay rentals. It's the developers who come in to create new homes in a neighborhood. Those are the ones that end up generally being ADU condos for sale. But as far as downfalls or downsides for homeowners doing this, I don't know that there are any. I would say that we have challenges remaining because of the way the bill was written. We had to make certain concessions to get it passed. And one of those was that lender noticing and the timing of the parts and pieces of the approvals in the bill is a little clunky and a little challenging. But it's not impossible, and 3 people did it. So I think it can work. But we hope to potentially find some workarounds within the law, of course, that will help us streamline the process as we continue implementation efforts. Okay, Paras.
Yes.
Oh, did we lose Paras?
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So as an architect who's focused on ADUs for the last several years, I wanted to piggyback on what are the cons in this? Can you speak more to how insurance liability would work if a homeowner builds one of these, converts it to a condo? Do they yet have the existing condo liability of 20-25 years if somebody buys it from them? Or if it's a developer, how does that work? And then for insurance purposes, California does not seem to have a very evolved insurance market, and we traditionally have underinsured homes. So how does this speak to, or how does this facilitate bridging that insurance gap?
Those are great points, and you raised a couple of different points there. The first one is, let us just acknowledge that California still has the barrier of the condo defect law, and it has suppressed condo production and starter home production for years. Other states don't have this. There's always an effort to try to reform that every year in the legislation. In the various bills that get developed, we have not yet succeeded with that. But no, it is the developer, the builder, who carries that. There is insurance for that party to protect against it, and it's not incredibly costly, we have heard, but that's still a barrier, quite right. Now, insurance for the homeowner or the condo unit owner, I don't know if that's different than the challenges for getting any insurance in California. There are a lot of condos in California, and they are finding insurance, so we know it is possible. And there would be a small insurance requirement in addition to your own unit for the condo association that you'd be responsible for as well. But again, these things have been, conversions to condos have been done for decades, and it is a product that both lenders and insurance firms are familiar with.
Right. Sorry, I appreciate that, but just a quick follow-up. The $10,000 that you had originally mentioned for the paperwork and legality formalities, does that include the excessive insurance that let's say, mom and pop would need to have in order to do this? And if they become the developers and they sell it, or is that an added on cost to that exercise?
I think if you have not built the condo yourself, then you are not the developer of it. And I don't think the condo defect law is in play. If you merely convert an existing unit, I don't think it's the same.
I understand that, but what
Okay.
if you convert, you create the ADU, right?
Right. You built it as an ADU.
Correct. So is that the only kind of way to do it where you're not exposing yourself to excessive liability? Is you build the ADU first and then you convert it? Or in the conversion process, you convert it as a new unit and then you bring it to market as a new unit? Does that make sense?
I understand your question, I believe, and I think you're going to have to talk to a professional about that. But is our observation that they typically are built as an ADU and then converted using this standard process, which I don't think means you're falling under that. The unit is existing when you convert it. I don't believe that that's a condo defect law triggering event. But again, talk to a professional.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Donald still has his hand up. I'm not sure if it's a new hand or an old hand.
Yeah, I have another question. Thinking about how 2016, 2017 era, there was initial ADU laws and then revisions, and that's what really created all these new ADUs, including the one that I'm currently living in. Going forward, are there any tweaks off the top of your mind that you would like the legislator to make to 1033 that you feel like would increase the opportunities for this, other than condo defect? Because you've spoken to that, and that's a long-running issue. So I'm just curious if they're just like a couple of things on top of mind. Man, if we can get ABC done, that'd be great.
With any new law, Casita Coalition generally recommends letting it work its way through for a while so you can watch more projects and really understand what the barriers are and what the improvements might be. So that usually means a couple of years after it becomes effective. So I wouldn't say we'd be rushing into anything, but that being said, legislators like ADUs, and they have found it to be a very impactful policy area, and they're widely popular. So I would not be either surprised if we had legislators in 2026 who wanted to run bills to improve this. Some things that have come across our radar around improvements would mirror some of the ways in which these are developed in Oregon and Washington. and that they allow the creation of a condo unit on a blank piece of backyard, on your empty piece of backyard. So this means if you're a homeowner and you don't have a lot of money to put into a building of an ADU, you can get a professional, separate the place into your primary unit as one condo and your empty backyard as another, sell that piece to a developer, and then have them build it, or someone, to anyone for that matter, and have them build the unit there. We don't currently have that opportunity. Is that the way to create more units? We don't know. These are all questions. It's early for us to say what is the best improvement. We think it's possible that there might be a way to streamline the parcel map piece. Since the Subdivision Map Act that ADU condo law is meant to comply with is around dividing property, legally splitting lots, right? Well, a condominium doesn't actually do that. A condominium just changes the ownership of the different parts of the parcel. So is there a streamlining that can take place that will acknowledge that and create some sort of a waiver or some kind of something that would smooth the way and reduce that?
Gotcha.
Another thing we're looking at. But again, we're not saying that it's time to do that or those are the solutions or that we're ready. But those are just some things that have floated across our radar.
Gotcha. So just let it stew a bit more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
And while it's stewing a little bit, again, this is early on, but an idea that has certainly been discussed is, what if in the future it was not an opt-in law anymore? What if it was like other states where you can just do it? It's just law. So that's something for us to be thinking through as we see people finally implementing ADU starter homes, ADU condos. Maybe in the future, it won't require the opt-in feature that it has now.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, would you like me to briefly share our handout? I can show you some of the Q&A or the frequently asked questions on it. And
I think that would be great. And then maybe while doing that, excuse me, I was talking to my mother about, I have a great aunt Jackie, and she has a home. She owns a home. It's been in our family for a while. In somewhere in like central LA. It's actually been a long time since I've been there, but it kind of came out like that my great aunt Jackie is sort of NIMBY, and and I asked my mom, I was like, but okay, so what is she saying? And she's like, well, she doesn't want to open up her property to just any kind of people concerned about like safety and things like that. And I was like, I think that she would have more control over that than it makes it seem. And she just had some other like sort of arguments around like privacy and access and like legal complications and things like that. And I got the feeling that these are maybe like, I don't know if they're common, but I feel like they could be sort of like common things that come up in people's heads, right? Like, what is it going to look like to have people who are potentially strangers living on my parcel, like that sort of thing. And I also think that I really love that we sort of got to that point of like, this is just added flexibility. Because I asked my mom, who moved out of California and out of Los Angeles because it was too expensive. And I asked my mother, I was like, wait, so Aunt Jackie is really worried about random people moving in. Why doesn't she do the ADU thing and then rent to you? And my mom was like, she was struck. She's like, I had never considered that. And I'm like, girl, like this, don't you pay attention to what I do for work? Anyway, but I like that. I feel like though that those are like the things that at least sort of happen in people's minds. Like, whether they realize and sort of interrupt those thoughts or not, I feel like those have to be pretty common things.
Yeah, so we kind of collected some of these common objections, and the one we used to hear a lot is that, oh, there's going to be a land rush, our neighborhood's going to be full of builders who want to create all these. Well, as we have said, it doesn't change what can be built, just how they're owned. So that can help people get over that. And then people are just cautious because they think it's new and untested, and it is not. It's been done thousands upon thousands of times. We know a condo attorney who has herself personally done 4,000 of these. So yeah, it's not new. People say, oh, it can't be financed. Well, financing for condominiums is actually really readily available, it's well understood. People will sell ADUs in substandard condition. In the state law under AB 1033, it says that that unit that used to be an ADU that's being converted to a condo has to have either a certificate of occupancy showing that there was a final building inspection that it passed, or it has to have a health and safety inspection from a certified person. So they're going to be good units. Although that's part of the noticing, that you have to tell the person who's buying it that it was an ADU. The tenants in ADU rentals will be displaced. Yes, we've kind of covered that. And most ADU condo units are built from the ground up. They are not converted from existing ADU rentals. Yeah. So, but we need both. You know, we need the rentals. We need subsidized traditional rentals in large projects everywhere. Obviously, Casita Coalition acknowledges that. But so this is the document that's going to be part of the package that we share. It's our handout that also has some messaging. This is tested messaging from Sightline and Welcoming Neighbors Network that'll help you talk to people about this. And then it has the basics of the law on the first page, the basics of the benefits. And we're also going to share some of these examples of what you might say during public testimony. Are you a young person who can't afford to buy a home? Are you a homeowner who has a home but who has adult children and you know they're going to have to move out of state or commute some painful amount in order to buy a home? Are you just in general an advocate, someone who wants their community to have more variety of homes and more attainable options? We'll hear some things a little more data heavy. Are you an older homeowner? One of our problems, with our housing market is that people are stuck in homes that are too big for them because they can sell it, yes, but then there's nothing they can buy in their community that they can afford that's smaller, that won't be just also another home that's too big for them and too expensive. So people want to downsize into their communities. So that's a kind of a person who might, and that unlocks a home for a family who needs all those bedrooms. That person would be a very effective advocate at a public meeting. And if you're in a strongly progressive city or county, we provide a slightly different one that talks about preserving rentals for tenants. So that's just a little glimpse of some of our resources.
Yeah, if there's any final burning questions, comments, anything you got, now's the time. But I think that as we start to close out, I just want to thank you, Celeste and Jonathan, for doing this, for helping us and stepping in and being the experts, where I think that's something we always try to do is, we try to stay in our lane. And it suits us because y'all are handling those tough ADU questions, and and I'm like, ooh, I don't know. I'm glad they're here. But yeah, I think this is great. We're just adding flexibility, and so I think that's amazing. I just want to let everyone know that I will be sending a follow-up email. There probably will be a recording of this available. And the follow-up email will include all of the resources that Celeste and Jonathan were talking about, and showcased on some of those slides. So that way you can go through and have an idea of what it might look like if you yourself are going to engage in, producing an ADU, or if you're, or hopefully it's both, if you're going to do that when you do the other two, but also to be able to get your local entity, municipality to opt in, right? And allow people to do that. So yes, thank you. Is there anything else? Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add before we go out, Jonathan, Celeste? Anything?
I would. On the topic of difficult questions and ADUs, I dropped a link in the chat to our Casita Academy. We have an online training program where we offer a afternoon Friday 90 minutes where we do a session on ADU basics. That's going to be this Friday. So if you have the time, it's very affordable. Register, come through. We also offer a 4-week ADU principles class where we go into much more depth about ADUs, and you could use your own property to answer the questions as you move through your education in the 4-week course. So ADU basics, ADU principles, and a lot more coming with Casita Academy. Check it out.
Yep.
Nice. All right. Okay. Everybody, thank you. You wonderful humans. Thank you for being with us this evening. We will reach out via email, and I'm sure that you'll see us all again in some other webinar or event. And so stop and say hi.
Thank you for all you do.
Of course.
All right. Thank you,
Have a
Josh.
good
And thank you,
night.
Casita Coalition. And by the way, Casita Coalition, I went to the conference a bit more than a month ago, and I was really impressed and really happy with it. So thank you much for that as well. And I look forward to doing this stuff in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, love that
All
we
right.
got that. We recorded that. That was great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks all.
Good evening.